Hey, John here. In today's lesson we're going to learn a very important arpeggio pattern. This one is used by everyone from Yngwie to Jason Becker to Jeff Loomis and Jason Richardson, just to name a few. I'm going to give you no less than 4 variations and also suggested practice routines so you can get them into your playing as soon as possible. Here's the first one in minor. Second one in major. Our third one uses diminished into minor. And our fourth, we have another diminished one, but into major instead. As you probably saw, I snuck a 5-string arpeggio in at the end as well. Let's get going with the first one, and don't worry if you're new to these shapes, because once you get the first one down, you're going to see that the rest are fairly similar. The right hand picking pattern will stay consistent throughout all these shapes, so by working on these you will develop that habit very quickly. I'll go through these shapes quickly since you have a link to the tabs in the description below, so you can check out all the details there, but I want to focus on more important things here, like how to practice these so you can actually move forward quicker. Alright, here's the first shape. Start on the 5th fret or the 8th fret here, so then we move up to the 12th fret, move up again to the 17th fret. I don't actually do that in the lick or the phrase that I showed you, but I go straight down. But it's still the same notes, so you still have that 3-string arpeggio shape down if you get the 5-string down. This first one goes through all 3 different shapes of the minor arpeggio, and these are called root position, first inversion, and second inversion. So this is not a theory lesson, but inversion simply means that you juggle the notes around in the arpeggio, and whatever the lowest note in pitch, so the lowest pitch note is going to be on the G string in each of these, and actually the A string at the last arpeggio of each one, but it's the lowest pitched note that's going to determine the name of the inversion. So if you have the root in the lowest position, we will call it the root position.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
If we have the third, it's going to be called the first inversion. And if we have the 5th, it's going to be the second inversion. And it's going to be the same regardless if it's a major chord, diminished chord, any type of triad, and actually, 4-note chord, 5-note chords. It doesn't matter what quality of the thirds are or the fifths or whatever. It's still going to be, if you have the 5th in the bottom of the inversion, it's going to be the second inversion. If you have the 3rd, it's going to be the first inversion. If you have the root, it's going to be the root position. So it's fairly easy to remember in that sense. There's nothing changes just because you change a different type of chords. So in our example here, you can see that we have the 3rd as the bottom note, so that's the first inversion. We go into the second inversion, and then we have the root position here, and like I said before, we're gonna play a 5-string arpeggio here, but it's still the same thing because we went that far, and then we added the 5th, the 3rd, and then the root again. So it doesn't change, it's still the same inversion. Alright, so that's the notes of the first one, and now we're going to look into the right hand picking pattern, and this is the most important part of this lesson in my opinion. The picking pattern that I use for these might seem a bit odd at first glance, but I'm going to show you why I believe this is the most efficient way of doing it. So the picking pattern that I use here, it's going to be a downstroke on the first note, a pull off, then we'll have an upstroke, and then we'll have a downstroke. What might seem weird here is that I'm not going down, up, 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 because that would be more sweepy.
What are we, making up words now? Why don't we just fleeble-flabble down to the Jim Jam, Tim? Bad bear.
Why I'm not doing that is because once you're in a sweep and you have the momentum going, so basically this is the E string, B string, and the G string. Start with a downstroke, have a pull off, so I have basically, I could start with a downstroke or an upstroke, doesn't matter, because I have a pulled off note in between, so we have time. And once I hit that note, so I get 1 note here and then 2, that's the pulled off note, and then I hit this one with an upstroke. Now I do this, I go around the string and hit this with a downstroke, and I'm gonna get to this soon, but what might seem more logical at first would be to go up, up, and then you turn it around and go down, down when you go back. But that's the problem, because once you play 2 notes in a row here at speed, you have momentum going, and then you have to try to get your hand around and then, you know, not hit the G string on the way back and then hit the B string. And it's very difficult to do, in my opinion. And if you look at pretty much everyone that plays these kind of shapes, they tend to do it the way that I'm going to show you. So with that said, if you've already, you know, worked on these shapes or this right hand pattern and you find that it works great to go up, up and then down, down, don't change that, because if you don't have an issue with it, there's no you know, extra credit just because you do it the way that I'm going to show you how to do it. So, but if you're starting out or you have any type of issues with these type of right hand patterns before, I highly suggest you try this way instead. But like I said, I don't really care if it works, but this has worked for me and it's worked for every student that I've showed it to as well. Plus the fact that Yngve does it this way, Jason Richardson, Michelangelo Badio, and so on. So it's a legit way of doing it. So the way that I do it then, I'm going to show it here on my hand again. So I basically play the first note with an upstroke or a downstroke, doesn't matter because we have a pull off. And then I hit this with an upstroke as well. But now I turn my wrist out like this so I can hit the G string. And I do that so I don't go straight into it, because if you have this sort of angle on the pick with upstroke, you're going to go straight into the string, which is great if you're going to do a sweep, but if you're not, you don't want to do that. So you kind of want to turn the wrist like this, and that will help you clear the G string. So you do that, upstroke on the B string, and then you hit the G string with a downstroke. And this downstroke is very important. It shouldn't be a downstroke where you sort of go away from the guitar. Instead, it should be a downstroke where you play a rest stroke. So you go straight back down to the B string. So you should end up on the top of the B string like this. So up on the B string, turn the wrist, hit the G string, and then boom, you're on the B string again. You don't play it now, you just go that far. So you go bump, bump. So like this. I'm actually going to demonstrate it on this A major shape, right? So we have 12, 9, 10, 9. So basically I have the upstroke here, or a downstroke, pull off, and then up on the B string, and then down on the G string. So we have this. You can see how I turn my wrist when I do this. And also, super important, getting that rest stroke. Because the actual sweep here is going to be the downstrokes here. So down, down, down. So, but once you get to this point, you're good, because you can't really miss the string if you're not very unlucky.
I like it!
Because you're on this B string, right? So, and then you play the B string, you're on the E string, and then you restart the pattern. So if I play it slowly. So if you're new to this way of doing it, I would like you to try this as a warm-up / technique builder. Start down here and just play, think of this shape, the major shape. And we do that because we don't want to bother with, you know, any of these barring things or whatever. You just do something that feels easy in the left hand, because it's a really right hand focused thing here. Start down here, first fret. And then first off, you just go up on the B string, and then you hit the G string really quickly like this with the rest stroke. So I do this turning of the wrist. So I do that maybe twice. Move up. So I do that on every fret twice, all the way up until I reach the top of my fretboard, and then all the way back the same way. Then once you've done that, you add the notes before it. So you start on the top note here. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And, you know, you don't have to do it that fast, but I think it's good to try to do it that fast. You can get the feeling of that snappy wrist action. That sounds weird. You know what I mean. So because once you can do that, you're good. You basically just need to go up again. Add these two. And don't do that, but that's really the key to this whole right hand pattern, in my opinion. So if you have tried this one before and you had no success with it, give this a try. And if it doesn't work for you, just let me know and I'll give you the money back you paid for watching this video. Let's move on to the next one here. So we have the major version now. And the only difference here is going to be that we're in the key of A in both. So we had A minor first. So we basically have, from the root note, we would have A, C, and E. So now we're going to take all the C's and raise them to C sharps. Right hand pattern will be exactly the same. So and like I said, you have access to the tabs if you want. For our third example, we're going to use a diminished shape. And what's so unique about the diminished seventh shape is that it's symmetrical. So besides sounding super impressive when you talk about it, it also makes it way easier to learn, because once you learn this first shape, you just repeat that a minor third up. So basically what that means is that I'm just going to show you this. So you have 7, 4, 6, 7, and again, you have tabs available in the description below. So you start here on 7, then you just move the whole thing up, so where you have your pinky, that's where your index finger should be. So do that again, and you do it once more. And we do that 4 times because we have 4 notes in this arpeggio. So that's why it's called a diminished seventh arpeggio. And if we look at it, the spelling of the arpeggio, you have a root note, you have the flat 3, you have a flat 5, and then you have a double flat 7. And the double flat 7 is the same note there, and harmonic is the natural 6th. But this one is very commonly heard in classical music, and the first example that I did here, I'm ending this going diminished into minor. So I go just ending with that 5-string root position arpeggio as we did in the first example. And this is a very common sound. You hear it in English music, you hear it in early classical music from the Baroque and Mozart and Beethoven. For our second example though, we're gonna go into a major chord at the end. So that's the only difference. So it's the same arpeggios. So to my ears, this really reminds me of Chopin more so than Beethoven or Bach. Now, before we go, let's look at a practice routine you can apply to learn these shapes as quickly as possible. First off, you want to learn these shapes so you know what you're actually playing, and you want to just get through them as evenly as you can and without mistakes. And that can be super slow, so it's fine if you go doesn't matter, the speed doesn't matter at all. Just get through the whole thing without any mistakes. So once you can do that and you've hit like and subscribe, you're ready to move on to the actual routine. So the routine goes like this. You start with the first example, the minor one, and then we're gonna apply accents to this. And this is written out in 16th note triplets, so there's 6 notes per beat, which means that you can accent 6 different notes per beat, and that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna start with the first note, and I'm gonna do this without distortion first, so you can hear what I mean. You want to accent, whatever note you're accenting, you're gonna play it slightly louder, but you don't want to overdo it either. You don't want to accent it so loudly so you can actually see it in the right hand. You don't want to go like this, right? So you change your technique. So just a slight accent, but what you want to focus on here is that you can really feel the right and left hand connect more when you do the accent. So that's sort of the idea here. And also by doing accents, you're gonna get something that I call the spotlight effect, where you're actually gonna hear all the notes of what you're practicing. Because if you're only accenting the first note, it's very easy to kind of not hear the other notes as clearly. But when you have to accent each note of the phrase, you're forcing your brain and your ear to really pick up on any mistakes, and then you're gonna be like, oh shit, I need to slow this down, and then you do that, and then your technique will just improve because you're actually working on all the notes. You're not just, focusing on the first beat or every note on the beat, for example. So that's why accents are so important. So it should sound something like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. And I counted here, right? Because it's a very slow tempo now. So I suggest that you do this without a metronome at first, just making sure that you have your foot on 1 the whole time. So you go, this is my foot, it's my hand, but this should be your foot when you practice this. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's gonna be so slow that you kind of have to consciously put your foot down on 1. But that's super important that you do that. So you do that first, you just count everything, and then you accent whatever note you're accenting. And the goal here is to get through it, the example, without a mistake while you accent, you know, the first one. And once you can do that, you move on to the second note. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And now you'll see you have the accent on the pull off. So it's more about where your ear is focused. So it doesn't really need to be this super strong pull off. It's more that you actually focus on that note as you do it. But your foot should always be on 1. All right, and then you do that for the third note, the fourth, fifth, and sixth. And once you have done that for, you know, all 6 notes for this example, you move on to the next one. So you do the major one and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on, hitting 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then once that's done, you go to the diminished one, the first example, and then you do the second diminished example. So once you've done this, you're basically done, you know, if you nail it on the first try, you've done 24 repetitions of this, because you've done 6 repetitions for the first example, second, third, and fourth. And then I suggest you do this for 3 to 5 rounds. So that was 1 round. 1 round would be going through all the combinations for all 4 examples. So this should help you understand why it's important to practice slowly, because the more mistakes you make, the longer it will take you to get through this. So slow it down as much as you need. And then once you get really used to this, you can start applying the metronome once you can get the tempo up to maybe 40 or 50 BPMs, whatever tempo where it actually feels like you have this groove going on. Where if you go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, that's too slow to really feel that glue in between the downbeats. So in other words, this one is not so time focused, and also we're not necessarily moving everything up and down the fretboard. This routine is basically just going through all the accents and getting those done correctly, and doing that for 3 to 5 times per day. And that's your routine.